Good morning. Yeah, I'm just going to present on one of our projects we are working on currently, trying to get a unified data centralization and then integrating it into most of what TGHN does and what TGHN stands for, right? So the project, we've named it UDCII, named the Unified Data Centralization and Integration Initiative. Okay. So my presentation, just going to give you a little bit of intro about TGHN and then the project. We'll talk about the problem statement, objectives, the methodologies that we intend to use, and then some expected outcomes. We'll look at our resource and allocation, how we are going to structure things, risk, yeah, and then how we're going to mitigate all those risks. And then I'll conclude. Okay, so this is what is happening at TGHN right now. We have a lot of information scattered around our cloud, our personal computers, our Google Maps, Drive, and then all that, including our researchers' information, the papers that they are publishing. Now, the challenge here is we know we have the data, but what we are handling right now is data silo. So the number one problem is we do not have any single source of truth where all the formats and then structure of our data sits, right? So our data, it means our data fragmented around another way. So this causes a challenge of data accessibility. If a hub or a team member would like to access some kind of information, provided they know it even exists, it becomes a problem because they would have to email specific people. Another challenge is also handling some of these data manually. So an example could be a hub has record a Zoom meeting, or maybe there is a tutorial session. Then we have to manually download this data and maybe store it somewhere on shared drive or something. So this causes some kind of data quality issues, right? And then this also arises as we have some data governance issue. Now, this data governance issue is very critical because since we are handling a lot of data, it means that we have to be, number one, aware of these issues, right? Since TGHN is a global network, and then data is coming in from multiple regions, multiple countries, we have to be aware of some of these rules that is governing the organization. Now, another problem that we would have to discuss is redundant data collection. One thing that we've realized from the digital team is that a lot of hubs and then teams collect data that has already been collected, right? Which makes data redundant. If you are always sending surveys and emails for some specific information from the same people, and then it's also the same kind of information, that is redundant, right? So that is one problem or challenge that we seek to also address. And then, yeah, to add a bonus point to it, we will try and then we will say we will have to handle this is an optional one, lack of real-time insight, right? So although we have some other tools like GA4 that is helping us gain some of this information, but if we have our data and then everything, it's easy for you to have a single click and then you can see everything that's happening around TGHN. And another challenge is also inconsistent data formats. So now we don't really have our own format. We don't have our schema. Our data is being collected in multiple ways, including .py, docs, .pdf, and all that. So we have to define our own consistent data format and then store them in a specific data silos. So these are the 9 problems we seek to address in this initiative. Okay, so now all the problems that I mentioned, inconsistency and all that, this is a visual view of what I meant. So we realized we have some YouTube videos, we have some maps, we have some views, we have our website, we have some surveys. All this information, we intend to put them into one basket. So these visual actually can tell you 1,000 words of what we intend to achieve. So we are trying to bundle all these things and then we put them into one basket. Great. So now these are objectives. So our objectives are going to be birthed out of our problem statement. So we seek to centralize our data sources. So all that we now want to do is we are integrating all the organizational data that is coming from our website, our CRMs, our service systems, operational databases, everything into one repository so that we could eliminate the problem of data fragmentation around. We also seek to enhance data quality, right? So we intend to implement validation processes, cleaning, ensure data consistency. We tend to remove all these redundant data and then process them into a nice format and save them as well. We also intend to enable real-time analytics, and then the cherry on top of it all is going to be having a single source of truth. So we are going to consolidate all our data sets across teams, hubs, everywhere into a single repository or a single cloud where we would have our own way of querying this information. Another one, eliminating the redundant data collection. And the interesting part of this project is at the end of this project, we are going to have an automated data process. So which means that every data that is being collected in the hub or in the organization is going to be automated. Our data collection process is going to be automated. So when there is a Zoom meeting, the moment it is recorded, we know where that data is going. So anytime anybody wants that information, they can just go in there and query. And then also we would build some features like notifications. So an example is, let's say I'm in charge of recordings. Anytime there's a recording, the data is just synced directly and then passed into the repository. And then I get a notification that I'm a data owner here, and then there has been a new data that has been updated, or the data I own or the data I'm supposed to own, it has been updated. Another thing is to also improve data accessibility. So what I just mentioned is a way of improving data accessibility. Number one, making it aware to the people the type of data we have and then what it could be used for, right? So you come in and then you go in there, we are going to have like a document on all the data that we own currently, and then how you will be able to access them, and then how it would be also benefit you. This is going to be accessible to every team member, every hub. We are going to plan out our data team roles, the permissions you have to access some data if you're supposed to, the person you are supposed to contact in order to access a data. Mostly this is not going to be by mail. You just go to our initiative or our site, which is going to be part of the TJHN website, and then you just click just a button, and then you are able to request for some kind of data that is being reviewed on the platform by the data owners, and then they will give you access. This could take you less than 5 minutes to do. Now, the major part, we are also going to implement data governance framework. So although there are a lot of governance, like we have GDPR, HIPAA, and all that, we are now going to be going in depth where all our regions, we're going to do a detailed research on where all our regions are, the data governance there, document it, and then also share it across the platform so that everyone would know that if I'm in Africa, or if I'm in Asia, or if I'm in Europe, and if I want to share some information, or if I want to have access to some information, this is what I can do. If I want to also share, then this is what I can also do. So we are going to implement what we call the TGHN data governance framework. Of course, it's not going to be anything that new. It's going to be built around some of these major governance frameworks. Great. So now we've discussed our objectives. Now we discuss how we intend to achieve this objectives. So here I'm just going to discuss some of the framework and then some of the techniques that the data team we've come up with, and then we intend to solve this specific problem and then achieve our objectives. Great. So number one, how do we establish our data governance framework? Now you realize that this is going to be in a coherent manner. So we try to every objective is actually important, but we are some objectives are actually dependent on the other. So in that hierarchy, this is what we have to handle first, and then we move on to the next and the next and the next. So now we define clear roles and responsibilities. So the first thing that we are doing, this is also in progress, is to establish our data owners, right? So if we have a hub, if we have a team, and then we have a region, what we have to do is that who owns the data there? We have to establish the data owner across hubs, and then the stewards, custodians, and then management, right? So every hub must have their own data hierarchy. This is so internally, we have to establish this before we go to the external. The external is to develop the comprehensive data policies, which is going to be policies around data quality, security, control, retention. And then this is going to be built around some of the popular frameworks that we know, like GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, and the rest. And then we go move on to implementing this. So after getting all this information, we move ahead and then implement this. Then the final thing will be to create a framework that ensures that this data is being treated as a valuable, trusted asset across the entire organization. So every objective is going to come up with their own documentation. So this establishment of data governance framework is going to have its own documentation. Everyone can take a look at it, and then we can proceed. Now, the next thing is going to be to centralize our data sources. Now, I've grouped this into, we have the assessment and planning. The first thing that we are going to do is to identify and catalog all our organizational data sources, right? So Sam, Adam, and Alex are actively working on this one. We're identifying our organizational data sources, the formats, the data types, the owners, right? That's what we are actually doing. After that, what we are going to do is understand how each department uses this data, right? Their specific needs, pain point, and current fragmented system, right? What you would intend the data to do. We would have a whole survey around, discuss this with data owners. Of course, we are building a POC, so we are going to start with a few of these hubs, then we start scaling. Then the next stage is going to be where the data engineers come in. They evaluate, and then we choose the best technology solution for this data repository. So when what we're going to do is in the next presentation, maybe we'll talk about more details, the technical details of what is going to go on. So we will have to build our own data warehouse, data lake. We would have to decide on the cloud platforms we're going to use, some of the open source tools that we will use, and then etc. Then after that, we plan on how our data is going to flow from the source, right? Just as I discussed, from data collection to the storage to the usage, right? This is what we intend to implement our ETL processes, which is basically the automated processes that we mentioned. Then after that, we define the roles and permission. Now, this is not, you realize in the first slide, I was discussing the same thing, but this is more of implementing it on the platform that we've chosen. So an example is if we've chosen a cloud platform to host our repository or our data warehouse, what we have to do is that we implement some of these permissions who can access the data. Of course, this is going to be coming out from what we already have and then what we discuss with the various stakeholders. Now, this is the implementation stage. So this is mostly the technical part. We develop our ETL pipeline, right? So this is where we build our automated processes to extract, transform, and load the data from the source system. So most of these things are going to be automated. And then with a few manual processes that are also going to happen, we would have a documentation around it. We would go through a training to train our users on how and then where they can maybe save the data, and then the ETL pipeline will continue from there. Then we're also going to connect our various data sources to some APIs, some of the APIs that we already were using, and then also the database we have, the files. So think of it like everything on Excel sheet, Google Sheet, shared drive, and all that. All these things are going to be automated, and then we are going to move out from the manual process. So anytime even you have your own shared drive, you don't need to directly go to maybe Drive. You can go to a platform, and your personal data, you can have access to it over there. Then we move on to the loading, and then another important stage is going to be the testing and validation. So after this POC, what we'll do is that we'll test our system rigorously. We'll test the ETL pipeline, see if it's meeting all the data integrity, it's meeting reliability, it's also actually improving our workflow, right? It's optimizing our workflow, so we are able to optimize our time in maybe sharing data around, and then all those things. Great. Now, after this process, then our establishment of a single source of truth comes in, like where all this data is going to be. So this is in alignment with what we are discussing. So this is where we talk about the business, right? So the TGHN hubs, regions, stakeholders, firms, and all those things. All these things, the data that is pulling out from there, how do we save it, and then all those things, right? So yeah. Now we eliminate redundant data. After we've stored the data, this is where we start building the process of trying to actually do a massive data processing technique, right? So here we'll be implementing some visual tools like mapping the data. We'll know who is networked with who, whose information has been taken about over 10 times or 100 times, right? How do we keep all this information and then merge them into one, right? So let's say I have my information collected on the website. It's also on different surveys. The only thing is we just filter through, and then we are able to only get that information for me once, and that is it. Any other hub or any other place that they need that information, they could directly access it from the platform, right? So you go to the platform, a simple search could tell you everything, every information that you need about a specific individual or a specific hub or a specific resources. Great. So then we move on to the automation. Now, this automation is pretty much is the umbrella of the ETL or ELT pipeline. This automation is automating everything data on our platform, right? So that it will be more or less like from data collection to serving the data to everyone. So every team's data is going to be automated from the organization. So we will have some few scripts, cron jobs that we will set, and then we'll be updating this whole data. So even our single source of truth, we have to decide whenever we have to always update it. If there is a folder somewhere, we have to decide on how it's going to be fetched, right? An example could be anytime there was a recording, maybe we set up some webhooks, or and then whenever that webhook is triggered, it triggers a cron job that goes into the folder, check if there is an information in there, takes it, process it through all the processing that we are going through, make sure the data has been validated on the data format. So all these things are automated, right? I mean, they make sure it matches our data quality issues, and then store it. Then the notification that, hey, Sam, this data has been updated, and then this is the link to it that you could access it. You click on it, and then you have access to your data, reducing time and then efforts by a very high percentage. Now, improving data accessibility. Now, this is where we intend to build the front end of this platform, right? So how do people access the data? Is it via email, via notifications, via a mobile app, or via a web, right? So that is what we'll be discussing over there as well. We define the rules. So the rules are going to be on the website. Even if you log in, you would only see the data that you are permitted to see. Okay, so that's what we are going to do with improving our data accessibility. Hence, our goal is by the end of this exercise, every data about everything on TGHN is on a single platform, right? Even your own personal data. You don't really have to, maybe you have to search for a slide you worked on last 3 months or last year. You you realize that looking for it, unless maybe you are more organized and you've been actually organizing them on your own shared platform so that you can just search for the folder, open that folder, search for another folder, open that folder, search for another folder, open that folder before you're able to get your resources. Now, since we all are on the same platform, we're all using the same shared drive, you can directly go to our platform and then filter through, right? What information you want, you just search for it. Then there are some drop downs there. Just click, okay, maybe I want every PowerPoint I presented last year, and then it just gives it to you. Every PowerPoint that starts with A, you just click, it just every information is there. So or you can just go, okay, what about the PowerPoints that I did with Sam and this person? Then that is also popped up. You can just click on it and then you can see every information, people who have accessed it, how they've accessed it, how many times they've accessed it, all that information. The moment you click, it just gives you that. You don't need to go to any other platform, and then we proceed. So that is how we meant by improving the data accessibility. Then enabling real-time analytics. This is an optional thing we could do. Just as I mentioned in the beginning, after implementing our data pipeline, we can decide to do a few dashboards and all that to show how the data is moving. So anytime there is a data update, we say, okay, this data has one data point has been added to this data. This data is improving. So it's in real time, right? So we don't need maybe quarterly or monthly. Anytime you go there, you open the platform, that you see our data moving in real time, right? So you see that, okay, maybe there's been a new tutorial added, there's been that, you click and then every detail is given to you in real time. So means you can download that information, share it among stakeholders or investors or anyone that maybe they would want any information. And then it's going to be since we are improving accessibility, most of the things on the platform is going to be a click of a button, right? And then you get the whole information. Now these are our expected outcomes. So yeah, by the end of this project, this is what we expect to get. We're going to expect an improved data quality, right? TGHN can boast of a very improved data quality pipeline, right? Faster time insight. So we're going to reduce reporting delays and then quicker access to data. This will also enable faster decision making, right? Anytime you need something, you just go in there, you click, and then you have that information, and then you can decide, oh, now last year we did 40 tutorials, this year we are doing 4,000. So we know the difference is there. This is what we can do. This is what we can improve. These are the teams that are working on this. These are the teams that are working. You get everything connected together on one platform. This will also increase our operational efficiency, right? Because if you are even spending like 30 minutes every time searching for data, that is like 1/16 of your time you being used. So that is what we intend to reduce. Then this is also going to reduce cost a lot. And then improving compliance. This is very important since we are going to have this whole compliance data document where everybody is going to be trained on it. So you actually know that the way I'm assessing the data, this data I'm giving to this charts model or this or that, I'm not supposed to do that, right? Or this is the data that I can maybe download, this is the data I can share, so it's going to improve our compliance, and then we are also going to be aware of some of these compliance. So now these are our project team. So we intend to have a very small team, highly effective and skilled in specific areas, who can help with the project. So the first is going to be someone who is going to sponsor the project or people who are going to sponsor this project. That is for the finance aspect. And then we have the steering committee. We already have this in place. Adam, Sam, Alex, they are steering the wheel, where to go, which one to do first. And then now we need a project manager who's going to be responsible of managing this project, planning, execution, and reporting. For now, the digital team is standing in for most of these things. And then since most of our projects are going to be on the cloud, we need a cloud architect, which is going to help us with the design and then also going to oversee the implementation of the cloud-based infrastructure. Then another important team members we're going to need are the data engineers. Since this is more of a data project, we're going to need the data engineers who are going to actually handle everything data, the design of the workflow, the ETL pipelines, all the documentation around, they will handle it. Then we need compliance officers, right? People who has expertise in some of the HIPAA rules, the rules around organizations, countries, and all that. That's what we intend to do. Then finally, this is going to be coming from our own team members, our data owners. So these are people who actually understand the domain of what they are working on, right? So we get them, and then they would act as data owners for the project. Yeah. So the next thing is, what are some of the expected risk, right? So we're going, and then how we intend to mitigate some of this risk. So number one is going to be data security and privacy risk. And then we intend to work with the compliance officers and to make sure some of these things are well audited so that the data we store on various cloud platforms or repositories, we are able to define the region that this data is supposed to be, how the data is supposed to be accessed, and then so that all these would be minimized into maybe negligible figure. Then our integration and complexity of legacy systems. So we know some of our systems, like maybe our websites and so on and so forth, are being built on some systems that we intend to change. So we intend to maybe build this thing to be very robust to change, right? So that anything that we change on our platform, we might not supposed to probably change the pipeline or all over again. So we are building that is more robust to change with time. And then, yeah, so that is the next point, like user adoption. So we are going to have a training and communication plan, right? So this is not going to be a project where we build and then we say use it, right? It's going to be a project that the team is going to build. Everybody's going to be involved, and then it's going to be very interesting, right? Everybody's going to be involved. So by the time the whole project is completed, we would have everyone understanding what we are actually doing, and then they are able to use it. That is the goal. And then time slippage due to dependencies. So this could be like, maybe I need some data from somewhere, and then the person is not available, not responding to the emails and all those things. That's another risk. That's why we intend to implement the agile methodology. So the digital team, what we intend to do is we are implementing the agile methodology as well here. So we are going to be doing iterative deployment, monitor progress, and also regular status updates. So this is going to be an intensive project where we've already started. So every week we have updates. The more we get more team members to join, we'll be having sprint, we'll be having scrum, where every day we'll be having like 5 minute update quickly, and then we move on to our regular activities. So this is what we have, our whole TGHN digital process that the digital team have come up with, where we are going to use to build this whole thing up. Yeah, so let me just conclude by saying that this project success depends on the active participation and collaboration of everyone across the organization. And then we encourage everyone, right, to give your feedbacks, ask all the questions you could ask. You can just email the digital team, and then actively engage in the upcoming workshop and most of these training sessions that we are going to work on. So in the bonus of it, it will be since mostly 100% of everyone in TGHN is working with data, it will be great to learn a few things as well. Okay, so I'm just going to leave this quote with Helen Keller saying that alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. So this calls for a very massive collaboration on this project. So yeah, that is it. So gracias, and then thank you all.